Hello guys, what's up? So I was gonna choose a video topic to talk about today, and I realized that I don't actually have a topic, and that topics that you choose are good. You can speak calmly and confidently about a topic when you know a lot about that topic. So if you don't know a lot about a topic and you're just explaining something at a very surface level, maybe that it can cause some unease because if, whatever tangent or whatever thing you're talking about, it runs out, then you're kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere talking about this thing that you don't know too much about, and then it's kind of hard and difficult to hop onto a different topic. So I find myself right now, trying to like gather as much information as I can about what it's like not really having a topic to talk about. So it can be problematic as it is right now, but that's totally fine. So choose a topic that you know a lot about. Now, what do you do in the event that you don't know a lot about a topic? You can talk about what you do know and then excuse yourself for a lack of knowledge beyond anything else. So, like, you know, if I wanted to talk about reductionism and holism and how you can combine these two concepts to learn better, if there's a certain area where I just don't know about reductionism and holism and how that applies to learning, after a point, I can just be like, okay, and beyond this, I'm just speculating here, or I feel this way, but I don't need to put a stake in the ground and make commit to a point that I'm arguing for or that I'm explaining. So, with 8 minutes left in this video, I'm gonna try to talk about holism, reductionism, and how that ties into learning and how you know when you can move forward with your learning journey. So, obviously, this is pretty relevant for programming because you need to know a certain amount before you can move forward. And if you don't know a certain amount and you move forward anyways, you're going to be stuck with knowledge gaps. And if you know too much and you're not moving forward, but you think you need to know more, you're just wasting time. So, in either case, you need to know when it's appropriate for you to move on. And now I can start talking about reductionism and holism and how it's only by using these two concepts that you can make a better decision on if you're ready to move on or not. So, with reductionism, we can take an example of a rainforest, for example. So, let's say we're scientists and there's a rainforest that we need to learn and study. So, using a reductionist approach to study this rainforest, we would basically look at the forest and then we reduce it further. What is it made of? Trees. Okay, so now we have all our different species of trees. What lives in the rainforest aside from the trees? Frogs, jaguars, just reducing things more and more, right? What are these trees and jaguars made out of? Cells? Okay. So the reductionist approach is to take whole concepts such as a jaguar and reducing it into smaller concepts like tissue and organs and cells. So that's good, and I think in programming there's a lot of reductionism where a concept is explained by breaking it apart into other concepts. So, for example, in computer science, computer, and here's the motherboard and the RAM, and this is how these things interact. And the interaction between these things is more of a holistic approach. And so, this is where we're going to move to next. So, let's say we're still this group of scientists studying this rainforest. Now, if we'd use a holistic approach, instead of zooming in to the rainforest to kind of discover facts about the rainforest, we would be zooming out. So let's say we zoom out a level further out of the rainforest, and we have clouds now, we have rain, and we could reduce these into like just chemistry, but uh understanding the water cycle of the rainforest is not going to be possible through reductionism, because the water cycle is something that combines reduced parts in order for it to be understood. So using reductionist techniques isn't good for getting big picture things right. Another explanation for holism is things that are greater than the sum of their parts. So a bike is a collection of tires, wheels, metal, a seat, a chain, and we can reduce these pieces into or we can reduce a bike into these pieces, and that those pieces on their own is absolutely nothing. However, when we combine these pieces together, the emergent property of these bike parts is a bike. And that's important because a bike is more useful than its individual pieces. So, how does this tie into when to know when you're ready to move on? So, here we might be getting out of my depth, and even what I just said might have not been completely accurate. But when learning, if you're stuck in a sort of tutorial hell and you're familiar with different parts but you don't know what to do, it's probably you need to look at things a little more holistically and see where things tie together, right? Because if you know a lot, if you're stuck in tutorial hell, it means you have all the different pieces, you've reduced things enough, right? What you don't want to do is you don't want to continue reducing these pieces into more stuff, right? Then, I mean, that's called a rabbit hole. Then you're just going down and you're not digging yourself out of it. When you use a more holistic approach, it forces you to think about what these different parts do together. And I think a lot of explanations and documentations and on the web in general, there's a lot of reductionist explanations and not enough holistic seeing where the parts tie together. And it's tough because then learners lack a clear vision and a clear end goal about how all these things work together. So, on the opposite end, if we look at someone who maybe is stuck in the opposite of tutorial hell, where they're just like building, they get all the holistic concepts, but they're not looking at what each of these parts are. So, this is kind of just like brute forcing stuff where if you might be someone who's very comfortable in the unknown, you might be using, an analogy here would be like Lego pieces, right? Pieces of code or frameworks or libraries. You're using things and you don't know what's inside of them. And this isn't great either because when stuff breaks, it takes a lot longer for you to, brute force your way uh out of where you're stuck because you don't know what's on the inside. And so then, if you are a little too holistic, then it is important to start taking apart the pieces and understanding what they do, from a reductionist point of view. And I don't want to use, the word to define, the same word, but sometimes you need to look inside of whatever component, or you need to uh, read the code. And this is something I think that just clicked for me a few days ago was I think I just learned to read code finally, which was I've always been stuck too much on the reductionist side, kind of like looking at things and then going deeper, a level deeper, and I could never see how everything works together. And this made it impossible for me to read code because I would get so caught up in what one piece of code would do that I wouldn't even have time or the mental capacity to actually look at everything together later down the road. And this basically made it to where if I got dropped in a new code base and I was looking at the code there, I wouldn't be able to read the code because I would just get too caught up looking at the just, going reductionist mode, and I couldn't see the holistic picture. But since I started to, ignore, if I didn't understand something too much, I would just like ignore it and just assume that I know what it does. And then that allows me to look at the code holistically, and then I can start to make educated guesses about what certain things do. And also, understanding it holistically helps when you look at it reductionistically because you're not going to lose sight of, the original scope that you're looking at it from. So that's 10 minutes. That was a little confusing. I don't really know if I expressed that the best that I could, but it's day number 4. I had to find something to talk about, and the topic was not having a topic and, talking about something that might be a little out of your water. So thanks for watching.